Aquaman. DC All In has given Aquaman his first ongoing series in a minute. It's Aquaman's first ongoing since 2021. Not miniseries, not tie-ins, but ongoing, hopefully. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. The time is currently 2025 time of recording, and what is the King of Atlantis up to? Well, a lot actually. So let's take a look at his DC All-In series. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's time to once more dive into Aquaman. The new Aquaman series is written by, time of recording, Jeremy Adams, with art by John Timms, and colors by Rex Locus. We're gonna be taking a look at the first 2 issues. By the time this is out, there should be 3. So if this catches your fancy, you have 3 to catch up on. Also, spoilers. Now, there's an elevator pitch that was making the rounds for this series, and that was Aquaman versus Kaiju. But it's got a lot more going on than that. Firstly, let's discuss what type of Aquaman are we getting, because Aquaman has quite the long history that has led to him being either more silly or more serious, sometimes even edgy. This comic is definitely taking Aquaman seriously and presents him as cool and powerful, but also lets him have fun, have some quips, and he also has some depth. He has traits like a wandering adventurer's heart, which is something that can be traced back to his early Silver Age days. Aquaman's been around since the Golden Age, but there's a difference between Golden Age Aquaman and Silver Age Aquaman. We did a video about it. Now, because of this lust for adventure, he finds the day-to-day of running Atlantis to be a bit tedious. He's drawn to action, and so that makes his decisions at the end of the issue, where he just charges in after the now missing Atlantis, it all lines up. But how do we get to that point? Now, the comic itself opens in a way on a bit of a mission statement as to what's going on with Arthur, what one can expect. This is not a story of Arthur Curry as a boy, a hero, a lover, or even a king. No, this is the story of the Dark Tide. This is the story of Arthur Curry, the God Killer. So that's a taste of things to come. Arthur versus Cthulhu. Based on where they're going, there could be some Dagon or Dagon involved. How do you pronounce his name? He's been used so rarely that it's hard to know. As for the present, it opens on Arthur saving a plane. This sets up his status quo and it has narration that functions as both internal narrative establishment and also there's some meta elements to it. I'm back. Back as king. Back as part of the Justice League. Now, Aquaman currently has his wife Mara's power set, hydrokinesis. There is a bunch of power swapping and things that happened in absolute power. But what one needs to know, even if one hasn't read any of that or any of the past things or is completely new to Aquaman, is that he's learning how to use this new power set. No more fish telepathy for him at the moment. Arthur is also finding that he's pretty adept with these powers, and Mara even comments that he has a lot of stamina for it. He feels as though they're coming to him quite naturally, which is significant. This issue also has something I will never not praise, and that's editor's notes. When Arthur returns to Atlantis and talks with Jackson Hyde, who tells him he's found a strange pearl, there's an editor's note that mentions 3 past appearances of it. And it's not trying to be overly snarky or catty or clever. It just tells you where it is, even though it is also trying to have a bit of personality. The next one will be a tiny bit more sassy, but not to the point where it's jarring or anything. But this is a really nice thing because this pearl ends up being a big deal. And it's one of those moments where one doesn't have to check out those works, but if they get curious, now they know where to go. It can encourage further readership. Build out the world. Some push back against editor's notes, feeling that they may be overwhelming. Personally, I'm always of the context and where things are coming from. Exciting, but mileage varies. They do mention Garth and we get to see Andrina, so we're getting to see what the status quo is without them dwelling on it. We also get to witness how bored Arthur is. He gets all heavy as the crown. He's so bored he's misquoting Henry IV, although in all fairness, that misquote is probably by this point more well known than the actual line, which is, uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. Doesn't quite flow the same way. Lots of songs and shows and all kinds of things use the heavy is the crown version. Arthur is thrilled to have his day broken up by a rampaging water kaiju, and he's able to battle it with his handy dandy new powers. But it turns out to have potentially been a distraction or just poor timing, because he gets this telepathic shriek from Mara that something is going wrong, and when he gets back to Atlantis, it's gone, and so is his family. All that's left is the pearl. So by the end of issue 1, we already have a compelling quest for Arthur. He's got to save his family and his kingdom. He briefly goes to the Justice League to seek out some help. Never seen anything like this. What happened? I don't know. I was fighting a monster of some kind, and then I heard Mara's voice. When I got there, I saw a blinding light. Are they dead? I don't know. All of Atlantis is gone, save for that pearl. Now, Zatanna isn't able to identify the object. It's like it's blocked from her mind, but she is able to find a similar energy source. And so they go to that. They also have some narration which hypes up Aquaman. It's a kindness, Bruce and Diana coming with me. They could no sooner help me in these waters than a baby could climb a mountain. Now, when they get to the source, the pearl starts reacting and it reveals a gate shaped like an omega symbol, which in the DC universe means dark side. In the current time, dark side is no longer. This because of events in the DC All-In special and his ending or a allowing himself to be taken out, it was what gave birth to the absolute universe. And so now that his energy is seemingly dispersed, the question is, what happened with him? Is he actually still around? What's going to fill the void of Darkseid in the main universe? The threat of the absolute universe crossover ever looms. Arthur charging through this gate ends issue 1. It's a good easing back into Aquaman issue. It lets you know his status quo, shows what's important to him, highlights his new power set, also shows where he's at with it. And it also has some cool moments just in general, and a solid hook to get one to come back. A reason to follow Arthur along in his adventures. It's just a really solid comic. Of course, there's always the potential that it won't land for everyone, but the way it's set up and constructed is very strong. Now, issue 2 is where it starts going off to do a bit more of its own thing, and also pull in some Aquaman lore from various different avenues. There's a prophecy of a king, someone from another world, an empty vessel waiting to be filled. The man-made god. He is the Dark Tide. Aquaman finds himself in a foreign land that is also largely bereft of water, which puts him at a disadvantage. So right away, there are some stakes that are set up. There's something about seeing him against this stark, almost desert landscape. He seems out of place. He's a fish out of water. Now, he's beset by Grindylow, which are a creature from English folklore, but he finds in this encounter that he can control the mud. There's a bit of a stranger in a strange land kind of energy to some of this as he starts to learn to understand what's going on. He groks it. Grok is a term from Heinlein's work. I know it's also the name of the AI on X. There's also a pressure for Arthur to do well because he needs to get his family and Atlantis and just figure out what is going on. The environments in this issue are very nicely done. They're alien, but not overly so. A familiar alienness if you've seen lots of sci-fi work like this, but there's still enough off that it's a bit unsettling. Now, Arthur is able to subdue the Grindylow and gets them to take him to their leader. Come, ocean man. I can smell the salt from here. Come closer. I want to see you. This place reeks of evil. Of infection. Arthur comes face to face with Jenny Greenteeth, who is another English folklore creature / character, who has previously been incorporated to the DC Universe, not that much, but they have used her before. She's a river hag. River hags are all the rage. I blame Baldur's Gate 3. I don't blame it. I had a great time playing that game. In general, there are a lot of mythological elements to this world that adds to the magical feeling, which is only enhanced when Aquaman finds himself imprisoned with Arion. He has a long history with DC Comics, debuting during the sword and sorcery boom of the 80s, and he has deep ties to Atlantis, versions where he's the past king, which is what they're going with here, and it's how he was reintroduced in the Rebirth era. People tend to ignore the post-crisis period where there was the whole plot involving Power Girl and being her ancestor and getting her impregnated. That's one of those things that many are glad got retconned out of continuity. Now, as for issue 2 of Aquaman, there's a lot coming together. There's the concept of blood as life water, which has been seen across many works. Some people's minds, time recording, may jump to Dune. Here, Aquaman is captured and set to be bled into a large bath for Jenny Greenteeth to sustain herself, which is very Elizabeth Bathory, of whom it is said she bled many victims and was a serial killer who bathed in virgin blood to remain young, but that's not important today for Aquaman. Like the first issue, this one leans into the action, and Aquaman slides a tiny bit towards edgy, miles may vary, as to whether it's entering cool or too much territory. He's able to manipulate the blood itself, which does lead to some excellent visuals. These images look fantastic of him rising up on a wave of blood. It's very standout. Now, aside from all the carnage and freeing Arion, what Arthur learns of is a concept called the blue, similar to the green and the red. I say learns of because he has a question mark next to it when Jenny Greenteeth says the blue. However, it's actually not a new concept. Before this, it was often called the clear, but also, in all fairness, it hasn't been referenced anywhere near as much as the green or even the red. All serve the blue, connecting water throughout the cosmos, throughout dimensions, feeding the confluence. The blue is being stopped, so we must harvest what water we have. Well, all that's nice and all, but none of that is a match for powered up and looking for his family Aquaman. And so Arthur is declared King of Prophecy by Arion and the woman that he rescued. And a couple of layers are added to his ongoing journey. Now he's got to save Atlantis, his family. We have to see if he really is going to fulfill the prophecy. And also we have to learn about what's going on with the blue. This is a fun series so far. And it's showing a lot of love for some less used Aquaman lore. We have Arion on the one hand, and also there's a mention of Dagon. And he gets much more used in issue 3, a version of him. Plus, featuring Superman's telepathic mermaid ex-girlfriend Lori Lemaris, and editor's notes. Issue 3 is a good time. But as for Dagon, now Ocean Master did make a city dedicated to that character, but the original Dagon only appeared in one issue of Justice League. That was in Justice League 35 in 1965, in the story Battle Against the Bodiless Uniforms by Gardner Fox. I posted some stills from that and people got into an argument about whether or not they're uniforms or costumes. But one of the most fascinating things is that Aquaman is going up against Dagon, who had never been seen before and was created for that issue so that Aquaman would have somebody to have a uniform fight with. And then they left it for years until post the New 52 and Rebirth. Now, the Ocean Master Year of the Villain story from 2020 took a different angle. Dagon was a power-mad king from the surface. He tried to capture the ocean's power with an amulet that was gifted to him by demons. And while he did succeed, it did not help with the power mad, and so he was assassinated and the amulet was cast to the sea. So there is lots of fun potential there to do something with that. There's also a lot of potential for this series. It's setting up a sense that something grand is going to happen. It's making the most of its new power set. There's plenty of action elements, but there's also a core mission that has more layers being added to it. Now, if one wanted Aquaman to be a bit more sad or broody about what's going on with his family, where are they, his daughter, that was meant to be like a one lone tear running down the face, then some may feel that this is a bit lacking. However, this is a more driven version of Arthur, and it's also seeming to want to set up the excitement and all the hooks first. So there's always a chance they could build into that going forward. Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't, and for some that will matter, and for some it won't. There are also some who prefer Aquaman on a team, who feel he's better, more attached to other characters in the DC universe, who they're more familiar with, not Arian. So again, mileage varies. But as for this, as an Aquaman series, it's a very strong start. And hopefully Aquaman fans find this book, or just comic fans in general, because it is a good read, in my opinion. Of course, as always, it won't be for everyone. Just for some, Aquaman will never be interesting. Full stop. Now, all of that is enough out of me, and I want to hear your thoughts. Please put them down below. And while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.